Why don't skeletons ever fight each other? They don't have the guts.
I told my boss I needed a raise because 3 companies were after me. He said, "Which ones?" I replied, "Gas, electric, and water."
Marriage lets you annoy one special person for the rest of your life.
My wife told me I have 2 major faults: I don't listen, and something else.
When a coworker says, "Have a good weekend," I like to respond, "Thanks, I'll try, but I have this thing called work on Monday that really ruins it."
The elevator to success is out of order. You'll have to take the stairs. One awkward meeting at a time.
I don't mind coming to work. It's the 8 hours of waiting to go home that's the problem.
Why do they call it work-life balance? I'm balancing 90% work with 10% life. And that's if I'm lucky.
I love my job. Except for the hours, the pay, the boss, and the work.
My boss is like a cloud. When he disappears, it's a beautiful day.
If you don't believe in time travel, just spend a day at work. Hours can mysteriously vanish before lunch, and then the last 10 minutes stretch for an eternity.
Coworkers are like Christmas lights. They all hang together, but half of them don't work, and the other half aren't that bright.
I thought I wanted a career. Turns out, I just wanted paychecks and snacks.
Marriage is when a man and woman become one. The trouble starts when they try to decide which one.
My wife asked me what I wanted for dinner, and then told me I was wrong.
Before I got married, I didn't even know there was a wrong way to put the milk in the fridge.
In a relationship, one person is always right, and the other person is the husband.
My wife and I agreed that whoever wants sex first has to initiate. Now we're just 2 people watching Netflix in silence.
I told my wife she should embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug.
I accidentally handed my wife a glue stick instead of a chapstick. She's still not talking to me.
Why don't crabs give to charity? Because they're shellfish.
I can't believe I got fired from the calendar factory. All I did was take a day off.
I told my dog he was a good boy, and he replied, "I know. I've been working like a dog."
My wife told me I was like a hurricane in bed. I was flattered until she said it was because I knocked everything over and left a mess.
Why did the coffee file police report? It got mugged.
I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised.
Why don't eggs tell jokes? Because they might crack up.
I just burned 2,000 calories. I forgot the pizza in the oven.
I tried to catch fog yesterday. Missed.
A man finds a genie in a bottle who grants him 3 wishes. The man says, "I wish for $1 billion. Poof. $1 billion appear. He then says, "I wish for a fancy sports car." Poof. A luxury car appears. For his 3rd wish, he says, "I wish to be irresistible to women." Poof. The man turns into a credit card.
A company hires a new CEO who is determined to shake things up. He's touring the office and notices a guy leaning against the wall. He walks up to him and asks, "How much do you make a week?" $400, the guy replies. The CEO hands him $1,600 and says, "Here's 4 weeks' pay. Now get out and never come back." Feeling good about showing everyone who's in charge, the CEO asks, "What did that guy do here?" He was the pizza delivery guy," someone mutters.
3 sons leave home, go out on their own, and prosper. Discussing the gifts they gave their elderly mother, the first says, "I built a big house for mom." The second says, "I sent her a Mercedes with a driver." The third says, "I got her something special, a parrot that recites the entire Bible." It took 12 years to teach him. When mom writes back, she says, "Thank you for the house, but I only live in 1 room. The car is great, but I rarely go out. But, my darling third son, that chicken was delicious."
A frog walks into a bank and asks for a loan. The banker, Ms. Patty Black, says, "What's your name?" The frog replies, "Kermit Jagger." "My dad's Mick Jagger. I need a loan to buy a lily pad." Ms. Black says, "Do you have any collateral?" the frog hands over a tiny pink elephant. Ms. Black, confused, asks her manager. The manager says, "It's a knick-knack, Patty Black, give the frog a loan." His old man's a rolling stone.
A man walks into a bar with his cat. "I'll bet $100 my cat can talk," he says, skeptical. The bartender says, "You're on." The man turns to the cat and says, "What's on top of a house? Roof." The cat replies. The bartender rolls his eyes. The man continues, "What's the outer covering of a tree? Bark." The cat answers, "That's enough," the bartender says. "Get out of here." As the man and the cat leave, the cat turns to him and says, "Should I have said shingles?"
A bear and a rabbit are walking through the woods when they come across a genie who grants them 3 wishes each. The bear wishes all the other bears in the forest were female. The rabbit wishes for a motorcycle helmet. The bear wishes all the bears in the world were female. The rabbit wishes for a motorcycle. The bear thinks for a while and says, "I wish all the bears in the world were female." The rabbit revs his motorcycle and says, "I wish the bear was gay," and rides off.
A ventriloquist is performing with his puppet and making jokes about dumb blondes. A blonde woman stands up and says, "I've heard enough of your blonde jokes. How dare you stereotype us that way?" The ventriloquist apologizes, but she cuts him off. "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to that little jerk on your lap."
3 friends stranded on a desert island find a magic lamp. The genie grants each of them 1 wish. The first friend wishes to go home, and poof, he's gone. The second friend also wishes to go home, and poof, she's gone. The third friend looks around and says, "I'm lonely. I wish my friends were here." Poof, they're both back.
A woman is walking down the street when she spots a magic store with a sign in the window, "Find the perfect man here." Curious, she enters and is greeted by a salesman who shows her the different men. On the first floor, she finds smart men. On the second floor, she finds smart, funny men. On the third floor, she finds smart, funny, good-looking men. The woman keeps going up, each floor presenting more impressive men. Finally, on the top floor, there's a sign, "This floor is empty. There are no perfect men, but thank you for visiting."
A drunk walks into a bar and says, "Bartender, I'll bet you $50 I can bite my own eye." The bartender thinks this is impossible and agrees to the bet. The drunk pops out a glass eye and bites it. "Okay, double or nothing." "I'll bet I can bite my other eye," the drunk says. The bartender knows the drunk can't be blind, so he agrees. The drunk pulls out false teeth and bites his other eye.
A man takes his dog to the movies. The dog laughs at the funny parts, cries at the sad parts, and gasps at the exciting parts. After the movie, a woman comes up and says, "Your dog was amazing. He seemed to understand the whole movie." The man replies, "Yeah, I'm surprised too. He hated the book."
A husband and wife go on a fishing trip. He loves to fish, she hates it. One morning, while the husband is fishing, the wife decides to take the boat out on the lake. She anchors in a quiet spot and begins to read a book. A game warden arrives and says, "Ma'am, this is a restricted fishing area." "But I'm not fishing," she replies. "Maybe not, but you have all the equipment. I'll have to write you a ticket. If you do that," the woman says, "I'll charge you with sexual harassment." "But I haven't touched you." "Maybe not, but you have all the equipment."
A man goes golfing with his buddy, and they get paired with a stranger. The stranger is terrible at golf but keeps making wild claims. "I've played with Tiger Woods. I've won tournaments." After a while, the man asks, "If you're so good, why do you keep missing shots?" The stranger replies, "I'm practicing for a high-stakes game where they'll pay me a fortune if I lose."
A dog walks into a butcher shop with a note in its mouth that reads, "Please give me 12 sausages and a leg of lamb." The butcher looks up in surprise but obliges, taking the money tied to the dog's collar and handing over the meat. The dog trots out, and the butcher decides to follow him. He watches as the dog waits for a bus, gets on, and sits patiently. At the dog's stop, the butcher follows it home and knocks on the door. The owner opens the door and yells at the dog, "You stupid mutt, where's your key?" The butcher exclaims, "Why would you yell at such a smart dog?" The owner shrugs, because this is the second time this week he's forgotten his key. An accountant dies and arrives at the pearly gates. St. Peter looks at his file and says, "There must be some mistake." "You're only 45, the accountant replies, "That's impossible." "I'm 65, St. Peter checks the file again and says, "According to your billing records, you've lived 20 years longer."
A woman goes to a pet store and buys a parrot that previously lived in a brothel. The store warns her that the parrot might use foul language. When she brings the bird home, the parrot says, "New house, new madam." The woman laughs it off. Her daughters come home, and the parrot says, "New house, new girls." Finally, her husband walks in, and the parrot exclaims, "Hello, Bob. Haven't seen you in a while."
A duck walks into a bar and asks the bartender, "Do you have any grapes?" The bartender says, "No, we don't have grapes." The next day, the duck returns and asks again, "Do you have any grapes?" The bartender is irritated and says, "No, we don't have any grapes." "Ask again, and I'll nail your beak to the bar." The next day, the duck walks in and asks, "Do you have any nails?" The bartender, confused, says, "No." The duck then says, "Good. Do you have any grapes?"
A lonely man finds a frog who says, "Kiss me, and I'll turn into a beautiful woman." The man puts the frog in his pocket and walks away. The frog, confused, asks, "Why didn't you kiss me?" The man says, "I'd rather have a talking frog than a girlfriend."
An elderly couple walks into McDonald's and orders one meal with one drink. The husband cuts the burger in half and splits the fries, while the wife sips the drink. A young man watching offers to buy them another meal, but the wife declines, saying, "We share everything." Curious, the young man asks the wife, "Why aren't you eating?" She replies, "Oh, it's his turn with the teeth."
A man goes to the doctor and says, "Doc, I think I'm allergic to my wife. Every time I'm around her, I start to sneeze." The doctor replies, "That's not an allergy. That's just the dust from all the nagging."
A new priest is nervous about hearing confessions, so he asks an older priest for advice. The older priest says, "Just remember to be calm and encouraging. Maybe try offering them a mint afterward." The next week, the new priest takes the advice. After each confession, he says, "Good job. Have a mint." Later, the bishop calls and says, "Listen, I think it's great you're being positive, but you need to stop offering mints and saying, 'Good job,' after people confess their sins."